Welcome to the Developer Success Podcast.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Jean Burellier. It's really good to have you here. I'm really excited about this conversation because we started talking about what you're doing and how you're doing it in Paris. It was lots of connections and interesting ideas were popping up, and I think it would be really good for our audience to hear the in the trenches story of how do you build platforms. And I think that's a story that you can tell per excellence. Really looking forward to that. We have I have a first question that I always ask to our guests, kind of like an opening question, because this is the Developer Success Podcast. So maybe to kick things off, Jean, what is developer success for you?
Well, that's a really broad question, and you can go through this topic by a lot of ways. But for me, it's linked to multiple parts, even with a business and when you are part to a company. So basically, I worked for a lot of big companies. I work for insurance. I'm now working for a healthcare company. And so we are not talking about we are talking about companies that rely on engineering and IT and digital nowadays because everyone uses it, but they are not like big tech company by default. We are not producing software or selling software or being cloud provider or this kind of solution. So for me, developer success could be a bit different than other kind of people that work and focus on that. But for me, the developers, let's say success really would be to be able to improve how a company is being able to work, and also being able to change the mindset on what engineering can bring to the company. Can we improve, let's say, how we build product? Could we improve on the building part? Because I'm working for Sanofi, so we are producing drug vaccine. So how can maybe machine learning, for example, image recognition can be used to provide a better solution on manufacturing process, but it can also be how can we handle just basic, let's say, stock inside a warehouse. Could be also intercommunication between different teams and different projects. So this is great because it's a different aspect where you can work and where developer can really shine on bringing new idea and new business to the company, extending how a company operates, simplifying how a company can operate. And the other part that is also linked to that would be great. Developers are being included in every part of the company, at helping the company to be built, and it helps people to realize, and even us as developers, that we are a crucial part of the company that wasn't really present, let's say, in the past 10, 20 years in this field, but it's completely shifting and driving to something else. So being able to be part of this kind of transition for me is really great and really interesting on that.
If I can rephrase it or summarize it, is how does development impact the whole business and all the different processes throughout?
Yes, exactly. And even on part that people don't think you can do something with engineering and IT and digital, but you can prove them wrong on being useful pretty much everywhere.
Very cool. Okay, that's a nice definition. Just to get our audience a little bit oriented, can you tell a little bit about what your day-to-day job is like and what you're doing exactly for Sanofi?
Yeah, so for Sanofi, I'm a principal engineer there, and my scope is really broad. My main mission is really to work on building and developing a platform team, which can be a broad definition because it's completely changed from one company to another company, and it's still relatively new in the landscape, let's say. But the main idea is where other teams are really dedicated to provide new technology and new solution to help the business directly. Could be providing a new website, mobile application, interface, or solution. My job and job of my teams in the platform team would be to provide technical solution to be used by other developers. It can be on, let's say, on the front-end application to build, for example, a design system, so a library or reusable component using React, Vue.js, or Angular, or any kind of framework. It can also be to help and to try to drive how we can improve our usage on cloud provider, on API, also trying to work with other teams. It's really a team that doesn't really have one specific mission, but it's really to be able to communicate with a lot of teams, finding issue on how can we improve the IT landscape, and how can we bring an help team to work together and to not redo the same thing again and again. So finding, we have two teams that need to send email. Maybe we can have two teams working together to build one common API for them to build an email and not have 2 or 5 versions of it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, my day-to-day is like, every day is completely different with different kind of problem, with different kind of topic to handle, with different team, from security, for cost optimization, pretty much everything you can think about that.
How does this effort get started at Sanofi? Were you there from the beginning? Were you like the first hire for the platform team, or?
In other parts of Sanofi, so Sanofi is a big company, like there is like, I don't remember, 100,000 people inside the company, something around that. We do have people in 30, 40 countries, I think, something around that. So global company. There is some part which there is already like a team called the foundation team that provides some helper and basic solution, for example, on AWS Terraform module, for example. But I was hired to build a true platform team that would be a bit more global and being able to work on different aspects of the technology, not being just restrained on or just backend or just front end, but to be able to tackle a lot of projects, different projects.
Who decided to start that team? Was it the CTO or?
Yeah, so it was between the CTO and the head of engineering, because my current head of engineering, Nick, is worked and was leading a platform team before joining Sanofi also. So he does know what a platform team can bring to a company the size of Sanofi, and also the role of people working on a platform team. So it was like pretty easy. And before Sanofi, I was also handling a platform team for Allianz, insurance companies. So basically, I had also experience on that, on working with something that is really cross-domain in a company, and you can shift almost daily on multiple kind of projects from front-end, back-end, and everything. So yeah, but that's a nice project, especially for companies that are not in this mindset at first. You have a lot to expand and to bring to a company like that.
Have you seen that conversation from up close? Because you told me a story, and we're getting there, about how you have no problems at all getting budget for your team. But
no, we all have problem on one part of another part.
Yeah.
But for being able to discuss with the business, it's not my main, let's say, people I will be talking with. But because my core idea of building a platform team would be to empower developers and to provide them with tools to build something faster on their end. There is always some discussion, and like, for example, if I want to bring a bit more security, of course, I will have discussion with the business because for example, they don't think, they may think I ask too much of security based on this project. And you still have discussion and back and forth about specific topics like that. But as I joined the company less than a year ago, we are still in the beginning of shaping the platform team and what we can do. So it's also for us currently really focusing on how can we help the company and other developers to build faster with better quality. So currently we are more, let's say, on a step on bringing solutions like framework and tooling to help them being faster. So it's still seen as a good way. Maybe in a few months we will be tackling issue on security, or which are for the business are less relevant to them. Maybe it will be a bit more friction between us.
We started talking at the speaker dinner at API Days in New York, and you told me a really interesting story, because you told me that your first project with the platform team basically got your budget for your platform team because it was saving so much money that that it basically became a no-brainer. Can you retell that story?
No, I can do pretty much like a good issue on this one, because there is multiple solutions. For example, the first one, and when I can like free discuss here and like everyone can be aware and even replicate on their day-to-day job, would be most of the company today use cloud provider from AWS, Google, or anything. And even if it's sold as a good way to reduce your expense on cloud, on compute, and storage, it's really easy to have misconfiguration or mistake that cost a lot. For example, adding Lambda in an infinite loop, computing stuff all night long, multiply that by 100 and Lambda, you can rake a bill of tens of thousands in a night. But there's also people that use this kind of services without knowing everything about it and how it works. And so you can do a lot of optimization around that. And just being able, if you know how, for example, if I just try to restrict this topic about serverless technology, Lambda, compute and storage, you can do a lot and you can improve a lot by how people are working with it and just start showing that you bring good idea for the business and you help them to reduce the cost on AWS. You also have specific solution and techniques. So I'm working for, so Sanofi is, let's say, I would say old company, old-ish at least. And you can change nowadays with Lambda being able to provide 10 gigabytes of memory for CPU. You can switch a lot of compute that historically require a bare metal server or are using EC2 instance, for example, if I'm staying on AWS. Some of the time for internal application, you don't have hundreds of thousands of users concurrently daily. It's not a social network. But the only solution when you have your own data center is you create a virtual machine, for example, or maybe a Docker images. But it's running and costing money all day long, even if it's not used. So you can move a lot of this kind of compute to more optimized solution, and just to say, oh, maybe it won't be as optimal as the other one because you will have some cold start or some loss from time to time. But if you reduce your cost by hundreds of or thousands or stuff like that, it's really worth it depending on the project. And this is something that can be done almost really easily. This will be the first part, which is linked to basically tailoring what you want to use on AWS or any cloud provider based on your use case, how many people are using your services, when are they using it. And for a platform team, I think helping other team to be aware of that is one of the really good way to become friends with a lot of people and business included, because if the change is just, oh, you are using 10 gigabytes of memory, you would have the same result with 2 gigabytes, but you are spending 5 times less. If it's changing 2 characters on a specific configuration file, everyone will be happy to do it. So trying to find a really, really small way to interact with team, but bringing a lot of results, at least at first.
So if somebody is in your shoes and they have to start up a platform team, is that your recommendation how they should get started?
Sure. So it will depend if you start with a platform team that is being hired and with multiple people, or if we start and you also have to build your team in the same position. For me, just focusing on reducing like cloud usage will become very boring really fast. I don't want to look, I'm not an accountant or an analyst, financial analyst, kind of stuff. I don't want to look on billing on a cloud provider or SaaS solution all day long. So it will be just spending maybe, I don't know, maybe 1 hour a day to find a way how it can be optimized slowly over time, and spending other part of the day building or finding solution and talking to different team on, what could be important on what's bothering you or what's a blocker for you as a team to build what the business wants from you. And if you find 2 or 3 teams or multiple teams that have the same blocker, maybe work on this one first to create something. So mixing both of them is a good way for you also joining a platform team or creating a platform team to just to have fun also on your day-to-day work, to be able to create, to iterate, to innovate.
Saving people's money and saving budgets, that's a no-brainer. That's easy to get people to say yes. But like, how hard is it to get the data, the costs data? Because I imagine this really large company, that's not that straightforward.
Yes, it can be really hard. And I see a project where I struggle a bit to have every data that could be available, because you do have pure internal project where you need specific accreditation of the kind of level to be able to access it, have access to every data, because we're handling like user data, personal data, some kind of healthcare related data, which I'm from different countries. So even me being in France, trying to access data from people in the US, for example, could be difficult in some case. And I would guess the opposite also with GDPR kind of stuff. So you still have a lot of issues. But for me, and I know I can work with specific team to that, I think, because my time is not unlimited today. Unfortunately, it's trying to focus on what brings you the best result in the less amount of time first, to be able to display, oh, okay, this team is really useful to the company. Maybe we should help them to grow, give them more access, maybe creating a team a bit bigger, and growing slowly and trying to grow organically. If you try to really trying to ask, oh, I want 10 people to be able to rebuild, I don't know, Vercel or Netlify solution for everyone to deploy Lambda and front-end application, that would be a good target internally, but you will spend 6 months without being able to show something, so it will be hard.
Yeah. So start with the low-hanging fruit that has the biggest bang for the buck.
Because that's also for a company a way and for you to negotiate how you want to build your team. I was the first one to join either platform team and to lead the platform team. So for me, it was also an easy way to say, okay, I was able to save you 500K, 1 million this year. I will take 20 or 30% on what I help you like not spend on multiple way, and I want to change this amount of people I can hire to grow the team and become bigger and have a bigger impact. So it's like snow, like rolling snow in a mountain, and you start small, and after a few minutes, it's a big ball of snow that is able to roll by itself.
Actually, I had a conversation with a Gartner analyst earlier today, and I was talking about value-based metrics and value alignment. Well, the bottom line was that when you help people save money, they'll be happy to give you that budget one time, but they won't keep giving it to you. So it's only when you can like help the company gain money that's like, and as that scales, that you can keep getting reinvestment. Do you see that happening also?
Yeah. Yes. You have like, people are generous the first year because it's just a plus minus, and it's easy for them to see that. But then next year, it's not always, but sometimes they are not really keen to give you the same amount, even if it was something they would have paid, nevertheless, if you didn't do the work. So that's why I was saying at first is trying to find how to help team and reduce budget on some specific use case, and then spending also a bit of your time on building something that it's really could be harder to value as billing or financing part, but to say, okay, now I'm able to help you and every team that needs to build a front-end application by providing this library, this set of components. I help everyone to first maybe to have every website of the company have the same look and feel, and it helps the branding part. And also I'm helping developer because I don't have to create component by default from formulaire login page or stuff like that. And just to say, okay, you just have to import this component as you would import, I don't know, a calendar or a specific input from Material UI or any kind of front-end library, which is then a bit harder for everyone, but it helps the consistency of every website or backend application on everything, and also help team to deliver a bit faster, which you cannot really give an exact number. Oh, I'm helping the company by speeding process by 10, 15, 20%. So, but everyone agree on you are helping team to develop a bit faster. So then you can negotiate to have a team working, like spreading, also advocating internally usage of this kind of tool, and finding also other pain point for the team, and that you can then help again and again. So it's like really growing slowly. Yeah.
Because then basically you're looking for ROI metrics, and how hard is it to identify those and then to measure them?
It can be really hard because, for example, if you use any kind of, let's say, Git or GitHub or GitLab, it's really hard. You, as a platform team, you don't want to monitor every repository on everything. Like, you don't want to spend time on building a full Big Brother kind of stuff to monitor every team on the company. Like, you don't add value to the company by doing that. It's just to generate metrics. So you don't want to spend a lot of time on that. And for me, it's really trying to find some specific metrics and usage that I can display and that are easily understandable by the business and every head of chief and upper level management on what it brings, what the platform team brings. So for example, building a design system or any kind of library, I just try to display how many repository are I don't know, using React, for example, let's say React, and build a React application. Which percentage of them include my library in them? And if it's a small number of time, like 10%, it will mostly deserve myself in the platform team. But if it's 90% or 80% of them, then it means that they use the library because it's something that is useful for them. Because people don't load the library for the sake of just loading a new stuff. So by presenting this kind of metrics, you say, oh, okay, so if almost everyone use what you are building, it must provide something that wasn't provided before. So it's mostly this kind of metric on how useful you can be. And then you can have some, let's say, small, I would guess, fun stuff with what you create on how, for example, creating a new project on an AWS or deploying a Lambda or front-end application. Because you also develop tools to accelerate teams to be able to produce faster or to not spend time or rebuilding the same part, writing, for example, Terraform code. Like that's why big projects like Vercel or Netlify were created. You insert one line in your terminal and it generates your API. Your front end is deployed in 2 minutes. Top. The main idea is also, and fun part I do like to do is just discussing with business. Oh, maybe we'll need this new API or this new front end application. And I'm not even asking spec or stuff like just saying, oh, at the end of this conversation, 5 minutes later, you already have a default API being able to give me your business requirement that it will be live in 2 days or in a day. Whereas if you have to write everything else from scratch, Terraform, being able to test, deploy, it will take maybe a week. So it's also, you can play a bit on displaying that you can improve and accelerate how people are being able to deploy and to be faster with the same consistency and quality, for example.
And how hard is it to overcome resistance from developers? I did an interview for the New Stack where I made the controversial comments that I believe that the thinnest viable product is probably documentation for platform. And that just starting with documenting what people are already doing or the majority of people are doing, and then amplifying that and getting other people to start using the same process, that might be the best place to start a platform. Do you agree with that, or how do you see that?
Yeah, I agree also 100%. I have some people in my team that focus on using and developing and deploying also Backstage internally, which is a big, let's say, internal developer platform kind of portal for everyone. So we are also working on this field to be able to have one way to aggregate every kind of documentation, providing a good tool for everyone to use, which is also nice to use, and being able to aggregate information through multiple channels. Because most of the company today use tools like Jira for ticketing, maybe Confluence for Pages or Notion, then use GitLab or GitHub to store your code. Then if you maybe use Sentry or Datadog or any kind of other solution for displaying some alerting on monitoring part. So if you want one view of everything, and for most of the people also you have issue accessing everyone. Like a developer will may be able to access all this tool, whereas maybe a product owner or someone from the business won't be able or won't have an account on, let's say, your monitoring SaaS solution, or your business won't have access to maybe GitHub or GitLab where your code is being stored. So they won't be able to have this kind of metric coming. How many times did you, push your code in production in the last month? How many bugs did you solve? All these kind of metrics that are technical metric or monitoring. So using this kind of big platform like Backstage to aggregate both the documentation, but also providing on the same page or just on one different tab that someone from the business is able also to see every other metric, brings a lot and helps a lot on the business. Say, oh, you are providing us with metric we weren't even aware of. So they're happy to see documentation, the part and how to use process, and also way to find more information they were normally used to. Other than that, end of the week, end of the month, depending on how you use Agile and stuff like that, how to some PowerPoint presentation on something that is static and they will have to wait 30 more days to have the new version of it. Today, they can just connect themselves to the platform, being able to see documentation, update the documentation, change stuff, but see also the work of the team and the result of the product itself.
So how many people are working on that in your team?
So the team is growing rapidly. So when I joined in October last year, I was the first one to create a team. Now we are working to 5-6 people and extending it. So we are also working with team to try to create some kind of open source and having people being able to contribute. The main idea for the platform team is to have good communication with other team to contribute. So for example, the backstage team will try to grow it because we see that we do have a lot of things that we can bring to multiple parts of the company with it and being used globally at Sanofi. So this will be in a few, I do hope in 2024 that it will be a fully dedicated team just for backstage as it starts to be a pillar of what we use as a platform team, but also then to grow in multiple kind of area, maybe specialize a bit more the team, some part of the team of people that want to do more front-end application or front-end development or library, other back-end, maybe cloud provider, this kind of stuff. So it will really also depend which, let's say, big project will be starting for Sanofi in a few months or weeks, because it's also drive what we are able to do and how we can improve everything.
How much are you bumping into friction from teams? Because I think the anti-pattern that I have seen platform teams do is so we're the platform team, we're going to build this stuff and you have to use it. And we have the mandate from management to make this work and you better use it or else,
Yes. Your offense is kind of, you have to use it. And we see that every day with most of the time. And I love working with security guys, but a lot of people from security is like, oh, the security are always the bad guys only coming to see you if there's an issue and you have to do that. If not, they will just slap you again and again until it's done. So I don't want to work that way. So I really try to, at least for now, being just less than a year old, we have a lot of part that we can improve and change, organically, not forcing people to use what we do. So we try with the team to really display that using what we are doing will help the team, bring them maybe better tooling, better solution, being faster to have the same result and everything. And if people want to contribute to the solution, use it and everything, they are more than keen, and we develop a process for it, especially internally, which the process is nothing really new. It's just mostly what you see on open source projects, and we replicate that internally. There is nothing new, just having a good process for people being able to contribute, to provide feedback, opening issue, standard stuff that you would see on GitHub for every open source project. And then is really showing and being able to demo what you can bring with your different tool, different solution and everything. So there's also a good part of, maybe not for everyone, because not everyone is really keen to do that, but there's a constant part of advocating what a platform team is doing to other team. And then, which is really nice, and I wasn't really expecting that at first, but now it's, for me, I was almost silly to not think of that if some other team use your tool, are keen to contribute to work on it, they will also become your advocate because they will also be part of the project. So it grow and it help, and then people discuss about, oh yeah, we have issue every time we need to develop a new application. We spend 3 days to write our Terraform code, and then someone from the team says, but you should use this new tool because I'm helping to use it, and in 5 minutes we have a CLI, you copy paste just this specific line and it creates everything for you, and you already have an Hello World basic page, and then you can just focus on building something for the business. And then people try it, create a basic repository, basic project, they're like, oh, that's great. And then they become new advocate. So we try to do it organically. I'm sure that, and also I don't want to, for now, as we are growing, I don't want to spend time and focus and, let's say, lose time on trying to convince people that don't want to or don't see the advantage of that, because maybe they are right, and currently with the scope of Sanofi and everything, I have time to try to expand first on people that are willing to use it and want to improve it and bring you maybe a new feature to it. And then maybe for some team, it will be a bit harder to convince them, and maybe some upper management will have to push something. But I think I'm not really keen to force people on using something if they don't see why it can be useful to them. I'm doing a lot of open source outside. So for me, if you find a better tool to do it, please do it. If you want something else, great. I don't really want to force people with a knife under their throat and, you will have to use my tool.
Yeah. Yes. So really it's like the golden path approach. Like, yes. This is the best way to do it. But if you want to wander off, to me, this reminds me a lot of how anthills work, like the stigmergic process. They're storing information in the environment that helps in the individuals that come after that person to make decisions based on what information is in that environment. And that, which is really fascinating, I think. And
yes. No, yeah, but like, I think a bit showing that everything is easy when you want to create a platform team. It's not.
No.
That, I just want to say that for if people listen later to me and say, I will try to do the same, and you have 5 people say, no, we don't want to pay for that. Yes, I also had to fight with that. And now, basically, I was already leading a platform team before that for the past 3-4 years. So I also have this experience on what's easy to build with a good feedback from everyone and bring a lot of value. Whereas also I already tried and failed on specific initiatives that don't bring a lot. So it's also helped me to say, I'm starting with that because I know in a month I will be able to display that it brings a lot to the company. Whereas this other idea would be fun for me to build and to develop and improve upon, but it maybe will take 6 months to display that it's great. So it's really depending a lot on what your company by default want to invest in you and how the company see a platform team being able to develop and that. And also I have to bring a big kudos to everyone in the architecture team in Sanofi that are in Sanofi for much longer than me, so know a lot of people on the team, which team are really keen to work on this kind of topic, saying, we know that what you just built could interest this other team, and we know that you don't have access to this team by default for now, but we will put you in contact between everyone. So, and the architecture team support the platform team on knowledge and other team and people that also contribute with us on building solution for everyone. So it's not just a platform team working by itself. It's trying a platform team to integrate and have everyone working together as, to be honest, as most open source framework and technology are being done. You have people across the world working to try to improve specific technology, and we see it every day on front-end framework technology like Rust, Linux, and everything. So
you talked several times about open source, so it really sounds like it's like you're familiar with inner source, the concept?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what you're doing?
Basically, it's mostly what we could call inner source. We are starting to develop it and to organize it internally. It's something that takes time because you have to find how you want to work with that internally, with a process, with multiple teams. We need to handle what, let's say, conflicts are being handled between multiple teams and the lead on multiple teams. But that's something that we are actively working on, especially, for example, some really easy to implement solution to display inner source value for a company, and which can be done by a platform team, by architecture, even by security, and it's something that is really easy to have multiple teams working together. Would be, we all use Docker, for example, like could be to deploy solution, to work locally on everything. And for me, it's always a big issue because Docker, if you don't update your image or anything, it can really quite easily become a security issue, a vector attack from external people, or just not providing the best image for what you are doing today. So When some stuff that could be great, just have this kind of team working on, we are providing to everyone base image using, I don't know, Node.js, Python, Linux kind of stuff that everyone on top of that can rely. By having one specific, let's say, repository or spot when you store your base image, you guarantee that everyone else in the company will use your base image.
Yeah.
Which will help a lot with security also. And that's something that's like generating base Node.js image take like less than a day to set up your full automation pipeline, which one you want, which version, maybe keep the Intel one, but you also want ARM64 and everything. So in a day, you can still have an impact, and people from the security will be keen to be your advocate on that, because most of the time they have data on who is using which version of Docker images and solutions, so it helps a lot. And then you have people contributing, adding their own image, helping you with new version, new update, security fix, security issues. So this is really this kind of mindset of inner source and trying to convince people that by spending a really, really small amount of their time outside of your space or their specific, let's say, business feature, they will all have a really, really good return on investment, basically.
And one of the conversations I've heard in the inner source community was about how do you create the allowance for from team members that are not part of your team to contribute. And I heard several different stories. One company, they said, well, this is in their free time they're doing this. And I was like, what do you mean? This is their job. How? Others were, I think there were some percentages. Sometimes it's how easy is it to get people to get time from their managers to contribute?
This is a really hard question, because it really depends on some specific team. For example, in a platform team, it's a lot easier as the scope is really broad. So it can be easy. But with teams that are really focused on delivering business value, it can be it's really harder. To find someone being able to, I don't know, use 15, 20 minutes once in a while, it will be shadow for the manager, so they won't be able to sleep. But if you want some kind of more, you will work, everyone in the team will work a day per month or a day per week or something like that, it's way, way harder. And it really depends, manager, kind of project, mindset of people, also basically the age of people, if they know what's open source or not, if they know what could be the impact or contributing together. Because a lot of companies still have this kind of silo where one team don't communicate a lot with another team, even if they're doing something that is really close and they will all benefit to work together on something. So this issue is not really a technical issue, it's really, let's say, almost a social issue on how people can work together and how a company can operate as one big company and not an aggregate of hundreds of small silo or small teams that don't communicate. And it's really trying to change the mindset of people and how a company operates, which this is really, really hard. There is no good way, because you cannot force people to work on this kind of inner source, because some of them will be against it, and then you will have just enemies that will be against you for months, maybe years. So not a good one. And if on the other hand, say, you are welcome to contribute, feel free to do it when you want, you will also have a lot of people that maybe won't be aware or won't find good time to try to contribute. And I wasn't really able to find a good middle on that trying. So it really depends on teams and manager. Really, I think that, but I think it becomes a bit easier when people start to, even at first, if they don't contribute, if they start to use what people are building in this kind of inner source community, if they are able to present to the manager or top level that by using this stuff, inner source that you do not know nothing about, but it helps us to deliver faster and with a better quality, it can help to say, maybe I will give you a few hour per week to be able to also contribute, because it will be also positive for the manager to say, oh, this feature that is then used globally across the company, it's someone from my team that did it. So it's maybe a bit sad to say that way, but try to include the ego or some people to say, oh, if you do it, you will have an impact, not just with your team or your specific project, but across the whole company.
This is one of the hard problems, right? When it's like local sub-optimization. That's how my friend Mark Burgard calls it. Because if you're really metrics driven, there's some of the coordination work or the value coordination that gets lost in the picture. Because how do you account for, how do you measure that collaboration work that is being done? So if you're able to get away with not doing any collaboration work and just to focus on your own work, you can make much better numbers than if you're always collaborating with others. And
yes, and I would even add, if you don't spend time collaborating on solution, but just use said solution that everyone else build and spend time, it's even better, because you spend 0 minutes, 0 hour, and you reuse everything. This one is a end goal on a lot of topic, but it's also like, for this one, it's also like for a company the size of Sanofi, we do have a lot of projects, and I was working for Allianz before, same. We are speaking like tens of thousands of people working there. There will be projects that will be replicated, and sometime also when I join a company, after a year, 2 years, I'm aware that maybe we have 2 or 3 different design systems, because people in France wanted one, people in the US wanted another one, no one was able to put everyone in common, and they both spend time to have their own version of something that helped them, at least locally. So that's really a big topic on how company and people could try to improve and communicate better. But the big topic is for a company, it's strange because it's something that most of the big companies already do with some specific area of technology. For example, security. In most companies, you have one big security team. Maybe they will have some local people working on security, but most of the time it will be the same rules that are applied across every project, every way to develop and everything. You don't have people saying, oh, in the US, I don't care about security. In Europe, I want this level of security. In Asia, I want another level of security. So this is something that is already global. One big discussion I think a lot of people need to have with company is you are already doing that for security, and most of the time for architecture, at least up to a certain level. And it's finding a way to bring this same discussion on, let's say, normal but basic software engineering part. How can we all work together to not build the same solution 20 times? And then it's also a way for the business and for everyone to say, oh, we won't have to spend 20 times the same amount to build the same API that could be reused. The basic example I always take is an email API. Most projects will need to send an email from time to time. Could be when you register to it, could be when you lose your password and you want to reset password link or something like that. When you buy something also, for example. So most of the project that does have an interface, you will need sometime, somewhere, a way to send an email. But if you have 100 projects that need that, and every team need to recreate a new API to subscribe to any kind of SaaS solution that help you send an email because you don't want to configure 100 SMTP server and everything, so you will pay for that. And maybe you will send the same amount, but you will have lost manpower and time building 100 times the same API with the same use case of sending an email. If you are able to display, if we are not doing that, and try to build some kind of transversal API that everyone is aware, with a good documentation, with people, let's say, advocating or being aware that this kind of transversal API does exist for the company, then you can easily display, we move from 100 email API to 1. then you lower the cost on maintenance, you lower the security risk because you only have to maintain one and not 100. Most of the time, people won't write the 100 API with the same language. Maybe some people will write it in Python because they were doing API or in Python. Others will do it in Node.js. Other one will be maybe C#. Like, it will also bring the complexity of the technical stack of the company low, or at least lower, and reduce cost also. So, and I think that's also a good way for people to bring IG and to say, oh, inner source is not just building packages, it's helping the company on building once, reusing everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And it also helps you to save, to scale, to be more scale, like gain economies of scale, because you're saving costs, because now you have a single system where you might get a better price.
Yes. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely something that you are able to see, oh, we don't have 100 contracts sending 1,000 email each. You will be like, I have one contract sending 1 million. Yeah. Can you give me a price? And most of the time, people will do it. Yes.
Maybe that's interesting. You said you're still, like, you're now a team of 6 approximately?
Yeah, the team is growing because the main issue when you try to hire people is the time. And for example, in France, it takes a longer time to hire people, even in most countries in Europe, because it's not like the US where you can change from one company to another in like 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
In France, if you hire or want to grab someone that are already working for another company, it's at least 3 months of delay most of the time.
Yeah.
So it expands the timeline also a bit. So there is like 6 people, 7 soon. But basically in the past year, we have been hiring and growing almost 1 person every 2 months-ish, something like that, and growing and extending reach and scope, but also working with different teams on, we know that this new API or this solution would be something that could help, but we are not able to do it just ourselves. Maybe it would be bringing people from 2 teams that does have this pain point and say, okay, I will help you and we will help you to build that. Could you please agree on spending some days, some time from team A and some time from team B to work on that and build that together? So it's also a bit of advocating of people working together to build something, to like work against my team not having enough people yet to cover everything. But even the end goal would be to I don't want a platform team that take decision and do what the platform team want to do and enforce that by, this is a rule, you have to follow it, like we discussed earlier. I want people from every team to be able to say, I think we should improve that way because of this specific use case or global use case or optimization or everything. Like for me, it makes a lot more sense to have everyone in the company being able to contribute, because as an open source contributor, this is a way I'm seeing software being used in every company. You don't have someone in a Node.js ecosystem or React ecosystem or Rust ecosystem saying, we want to do that because my company wants to do that. It's mostly, I would say mostly, a choice by the community on what we want to implement and what will stay or what will leave or not being implemented. So for me, keeping the same idea and mindset for a platform team seems to be a good way to have people being happy to work with a platform team, being able to contribute also by themselves and to improve, basically.
Like, so as you're growing your team, like, how do you decide what kind of roles are you hiring for this team?
Hiring people is always hard, and trying to find people with a good skill set, experience, especially because platform team is still something that is really new, especially in Europe. You have way less people that are experienced in this kind of mindset. So you cannot advertise like you would do, I want a senior front-end engineer with 6 years of React experiences. Because finding someone, you want to join a platform team, and in your job description, it will be, you're doing a bit of front-end, bit of back-end, bit of everything, plus you advocate, plus you write documentation. So it's really hard to define what you want to do. I was really lucky for me when I joined to be able to hire internally from other team people that already started some specific project, even in the previous company, trying to federate small community of people working together and trying to build reusable components. So I think it's one good way to find people that are keen to work together and to bring teams to work together. Finding people that already tried to do this kind of work. Another way would be to have people that already work and contribute to open source, because they are aware of the difficulty of trying to build something that you are not the only one using, and a lot of other people will use what you build. So it also raises this kind of awareness of, oh, I need to be able to understand the need of a lot of people, not just my need for my specific application. For me, I really trying to hire people based on that, on mostly for the mindset. For the technical part, I try to reduce on what we are using in Sanofi in terms of technology, and what I really do think we can improve a lot and have an impact in the company. For example, I really like Rust a lot. I'm doing Rust for fun. It's really nice to use. But today, I know it will be really hard to hire a team of even 5 to 10 people that are really, really good in Rust in Europe, because you don't really have. It's easier to find people doing Node.js, for example, or even Python, even if it's not the best way to do everything. In terms of performances, for example, I have to stay, okay, I prefer to have people that know a lot of Node.js and Python because it's what we use in the company, than Rust, and sacrificing maybe a bit of performance to be able to produce something that will be used. And maybe later on, some specific part will change with another technology, but yeah. So hiring is really hard, but I think like hiring people in engineering in IT, I think is hard for everyone, regardless platform or not, technology or not. So, but yeah, it's hardest, I would guess, to say, because it's really hard to define a specific job description on what you will do.
So like, it sounds almost like, from what I heard you describe, it almost sounds like a developer relations job, where you need someone who's technical enough, who understands, but who's also a really good communicator and a community builder. Jean, you said that you're using Backstage for building your developer portal. Can you explain a little bit why you chose Backstage? And I've heard people say that because it's TypeScript, it can be kind of tricky to find people that can write in it. What is your experience building on top of Backstage?
So first, I wasn't the one bringing Backstage to Sanofi. It was someone that was working in the platform team with me one day, was like, oh, I saw this good presentation from someone from another company that was using Backstage that is really great. And I was like, yeah, I know there's a lot of tools for external developer platform, but internal one, most of the time, companies don't really have one or rely on Confluence to have one part of documentation and something else. So it spent a week, something like that, to try to build a proof of concept and to display what's available. And one of the good stuff with Backstage is because it relies a lot of plugin, and even if it's TypeScript, we are working with a lot of front-end applications. So in Sanofi, you do have a lot, maybe not all, but a good part of people that are building and using React and TypeScript to build front-end applications. So it's not really hard for us to find people that are able to write plugin. And also a lot of our APIs can be, not all of them, but some use Node.js like company as of today when you work with Lambdas, for example. So we are able to rely on internal knowledge from other people, and it also give us a good framework on how to build this kind of internal documentation and internal solution with Backstage, while it also gives us freedom to create our own plugins which would get information from internal tooling, and really something that's a lot specific without having to recreate everything.
Yeah, right. So are there common components that you would say like, well, it would be nice if that would be better, or if like? I think
Backstage is really new. I think it's only 1 year old now that has been released as an open source tool by Spotify. So it's quite something really, really new. I think you already start to have components which allow integration with GitHub, with AWS, with monitoring solution, with Jira, Confluence kind of tooling. So I think you really start to have a good background for everything that is mostly common across a lot of companies. On the other hand, you still have a lot of plugins that for specific use case, or if you want to aggregate stuff across multiple systems, you will still have to build it yourself. Yeah. But which is nice is basically just front-end plugin and API beyond that. You can build your own API that will do some kind of aggregate, and you can build it as you would do in a normal kind of front-end application. And we're spending a lot of time doing that for the company. So it helps us a lot to say, okay, someone is building front-end application for a business project. Oh, maybe we'll need to create a plugin. Maybe we can ask some people in the team to help us if we don't have time, or just to review code and everything. So, which is great because it's the same mostly business that we are doing.
Backstage is open source. Now, as a business owner, I've been talking with people, and somehow we're very much an open source company. Like, we're building on top of Drupal, which is open source. A long history in open source community. Like, it feels a little bit like there's some like counter movement right now against the open source world, where I think it started with the cloud providers that were just taking open source projects and were able to bring them to markets better and cheaper than some of the maintainers of those projects for commercial open source. And it feels like I've had actually the recommendation from advisors in communities, like, are you really sure you want to be promoting as open source? Because, this is less important. What's your feeling on that? Like, you're avid open source, I guess.
I'm doing open source on a few projects. So there is, I think, two parts. And the main topic, I guess, if we're speaking about big company that use and almost or build stuff that sell to other company, 100% being used by open source, sometime without adding something of value, and just providing open source solution and just like adding a cost to it.
Yeah,
I think the main issue would be, and it will be, for me at least, a long-term perspective for that. If people leave and stop maintaining open source, most of this company will crash because they won't be able to provide security update or everything. So I'm not saying that companies should not being able to do business thanks to open source if they had something, sell better services or help company to use this specific tool on open source. But I guess there's one part where companies should understand that they're able to live thanks to open source and people contributing on maybe their free time for most of them, I guess. So companies should be aware of that, because we moved from, let's say, 30 years ago, open source was a really, really small world. And most of the companies were paying license for database, for processor, for like old stuff running, for example, mainframe running COBOL and everything. Then they slowly left this kind of world to move, there is other database solutions that are open source, cost way less, same performances, and they move to that. Yet they are not contributing back to, some people maintain that. And there's also the idea behind that, if you use as a company open source and people stop contributing to it, you will have a security issue. Like tomorrow, if everyone leaves Python as a project, every company uses Python at least for data science, machine learning, and this kind of stuff. What do? You wait for everyone to rebuild the same tooling using Node.js, Rust, C application? Are you willing to contribute, but most companies won't want to go into try to push 500 people to contribute to the language? Or will you try after the fact to say, maybe we'll help you a bit? And for me, I'm not saying that companies should spend, tens of millions each, but just if I'm taking the 40 biggest company in France, what we call CAC 40, so company, if they spend I don't know, I will say an easy to give number, 1 million each to open source project they use, everyone in the open source community will be more than happy to help, to work and to continue to contribute on their free time. It will help a lot. Could be covering people going to conferences, presenting and everything, and feeling rewarded, even if you are not paid to do it, but you would have maybe way to interact more with the community, to discuss and to exchange. And most of the company don't realize that using open source, you are not spending money on license, but on the other hand, if everyone leave a project, you will have to start over a lot of projects. The reward is great, but if there is an issue, the cost will be way, way bigger than other topics.
But the problem is that it's a moral argument. I've seen in the open source office at OSPOS, which was a trend that was growing like a little while ago, but then the moment that people started talking about recession, that the layoffs started to happen,
Yes.
basically those were one of the first that really got hit pretty badly. I fully agree with the argument, and it just, maybe this is the pendulum swing. Maybe this is like, les almaigres for the for open source. Yeah.
No, yeah, that's true. But like you said, I was happy in the last 2-3 years, a lot more company like open source initiative or OSPO group and everything. Whereas like you take maybe 2015, it was mostly every foundation, the only member were like some specific university, and then big tech company that were working in that. In the past, let's say 5-ish years, something like that, you start to have insurance starting to join this foundation, banking institution, even some government or part of government in some specific area. I'm thinking, for example, in the US, NASA is part of some foundation, open source foundation, let's say, which is great. I think it's also depend on the maturity of the company linked to what they do with software engineering as a whole.
Yeah.
And it takes time for people to realize that we are building everything thanks to open source, but if one brick is destroyed or stopped to work, it will be really, really hard. And I think some companies started to solve issue like, was it 2 years ago with the change from Python 2 to Python 3? And whereas most of the tool on the machine learning and ER ecosystem was done in Python 2 and was never migrated, and everyone was like, oh, we need to update everything because this version is not maintained and won't be maintained on everything.
It feels that a lot of open source has been feeding off of venture capital money also. Like open source was the go-to market for VC-backed startups, and then they spent a lot of money on this, and it's just not sustainable. It's not,
but for me, one big part I'm seeing is, for example, if 10 companies use Node.js as a solution, or Python, or any kind of technology or library, every one of these companies will spend a defined amount of money to ensure the security release of this solution. So everyone will use tool for scanning CVE, dependency, and everything. Which means that those 10 companies, I would guess, if you use React, for example, they will almost scan 10 times the same resources again and again and again. For me, most of the companies should, one thing that maybe the open source community could try to bring is to say, okay, let's pull resources from a good set of company to be able to provide, this is secure, scanned by multiple security company and everything, but still having, let's say, money being poured by multiple company because it's a way to help everyone. I would guess almost, I'm French, so we do have this social security and healthcare benefits. So I guess we could have something that could be close-ish to that on every company trying to fund a global development kind of ecosystem, which is really hard because, like you said, it's mostly a moral point of view on how to use technology. Because if 10 companies are providing enough money for the security to be at a good level, why myself creating another company should I spend money on that? Someone else is doing it, so why spending my money?
There's also the competition thing. It's like open source is collaborative by default, or is this collaboration instinct. But then business is competitive by instinct. There's a friction field there between this reductionist approach. I'm just going to take whatever I need, and I'm trying to compete. I'm trying to win what the other has, versus the let's all work together and let's live and let live. And
I would agree, but so I don't remember. Is it Nash game theory that say that sometime you will have an equilibrium between companies? So I would agree, companies compete between themselves, but up to a certain level where it's not worth for them to maybe spend more to beat their competitors, stuff like that. I'm not a mathematician, but I think it's something where open source as a whole, and I'm not thinking just one project per project, but the open source community as a whole should try to find a way to display that they provide a lot of resources and a lot of advantage for every company without trying to find, we are bringing more to a car company than healthcare company, but less to banking and stuff like that. Just saying, we are providing you with pretty much everything you are using today. How can you help us to continue doing our work with the best quality? You don't need to have everyone with this kind of multiple competence being able to speak and to present everything. It's better if people are able to present what they are doing and being able to almost sell it as a product, because we could almost associate that as a product inside the company. A pure technical product, but still a product. So yes, at the best, but starting, because you don't create 200 projects and you don't sell it to external people, and we still work in, let's say, an ecosystem that doesn't grow in every direction for fun. We still have rules and technology that we can use and others that we can't. It helps us to restrict on which part we want to work in. So then it means that you can have maybe one people being able to covering 1 or 2 or 3 topics, even if he's not mastering every one of them, being able to present how Terraform or this new CLI tooling help every team to have better reporting, better way to deploy everything. So yes, my best case scenario would be to have people that are really great, amazing technical, that also does have a really good understanding of the strategy of the company and being able to sell what we are doing to other team. That would be the perfect match.
Maybe technical writers?
Yes, almost technical writer would be really great on specific topics, about being able to convey what's being built and help building and put in relation and help people to contribute. Yes. Even developer advocate, for example, would be great. People having a feedback of developer advocate and the knowledge of developer advocate would be great, because you have this part of you need to build something, but you have to display how it can be used and how it can help other team and the company itself. And you also need this kind of pure technical people that are able to deep dive and say, okay, everyone is using this technology. I will find a way for everyone to be 10% more performant. So you also need those people that can deep dive in something really, really specific to say, I will help you on that.
Well, thank you very much for this conversation.
So much for having me.
I'm sure people that are listening, they'll learn a lot. We've covered a lot of different grounds. It's inspiring to hear the story of platform in the trenches. What's the reality, and how do you start approaching it, and then build up for ultimate success.
But I think also, if I can just end for this part, this is how I was able to build a platform team in some specific and big company. I think it would be completely different to try to build a platform team in a more startup kind of ecosystem, or with a company that is a lot smaller in size, because maybe the impact won't be the same. For me, if I'm able to develop one library, I can almost directly, I would say, sell it to 2,000 developers inside the company. So even if only 50% of the developers are happy to use it, it's still targeting a lot, which helps reduce a cost by a lot by itself. If you are a smaller company spending a lot of time and resources to build one library which will be used only by another team, maybe it's better to not focus on a platform team at first, or find a way, even if you don't create a pure platform team, but find being able to build something that where other team will ask you and think about you as a way to help them to grow faster or to solve specific issue because they don't have this kind of knowledge. So this would be completely different on depending on the size of the company, type of project for your company, and but that's something I think that could be almost replicated across the board in every kind of company. Like one of the biggest company that does have a platform team, and maybe one of the first was Netflix, to handle pretty much everything, which provide tooling for every other teams on monitoring, on being able to deploy easily, on GraphQL integration, schema integration, and pretty much everything. So it can be from a big tech company providing tool for everyone on Earth to specific company that could be just local with enough people where you can have impact on that.
Thank you, Jean. Is there any pitch that you like to do? Is there anything you'd like to pitch to our audience that you like people to go and check out?
Could be a lot of stuff, but no, nothing really special on me. You can find me on Twitter with the Chefship, the hashtag. You can find me on multiple conferences where I like to talk about Node.js a lot and how people can use Node.js and even Rust, building API and the impact you can do and have. So, but feel free for everyone to contact me on Twitter if you want. That would be mostly the best way I react on everything, or Blue Sky also. But you don't have still a lot of people using Blue Sky, so Twitter would be on X now, I guess. So you can find me there.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
This episode was brought to you by Pronovix. You can learn more about our company at pronovix.com. Thank you for listening. That's it for this episode.